when my daughter was about 2.5, we took our boat. We had a 26-foot down east fisherman, lobsterman's yacht vessel. I don't know what it was. It was an Acadia something. I am not a boat person. But anyway, we went to Cuttyhunk, which is one of the islands, the Elizabethan Islands off of the coast of Massachusetts. So the more famous ones are Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. Well, Cuttyhunk is one of the smaller, very remote. There's nothing to do there. It's like if you want to go somewhere and do nothing, this is the island you want to go to. So we took our vessel and we crossed the sea between here and there. It took us about 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours to get there on a calm day. Well, a storm came very fast, and like there was like white caps in the harbor at Cuttyhunk. Like my husband's been going there for decades. He had never seen it. It was crazy. So he gets us up at like 5 a.m. He's like, batten down the hatches. You know, we're gonna try to beat it. Well, I was already terrified at that point. I'm like, no, we're gonna stay here. No, we're gonna, because he's got all the experience, and he did. He was very seaworthy. So we get the dinghy tied up in the whole thing, and off we go. The only boat leaving the harbor to try to get home. Well, when I tell you terrifying, I mean, I'm not, he said he's been in much worse water, and he probably has. But for me, it was the worst I'd ever been in. And to complicate it, I had my 2.5-year-old daughter on my lap, you know. So at one point, like the boat's sideways, and Mommy, why is the water on the window? You know, it was just white knuckle. I mean, I swear it took 10 years off my life. So, and I was looking over at him, and I was so mad because he looked completely unaffected. Like he was just steering the boat, getting us home. And I didn't want to say anything like, aren't you scared? Because my daughter's on my lap, you know, and it was, there's a lot of details of how harrowing it was. It took us 7 hours to get home.
Wow.
And it was terrifying. And like there was a sailboat maybe a mile off, and like it would disappear literally for like 5 minutes before I would see it again. The swells were,
wow.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, if my daughter wasn't there, I would have said very bad things, because I was so mad at him for putting, and it's that feeling of there's nothing you can do. Like you have zero control. You're in the situation and you're powerless. That's how I felt, which I hate that feeling. So we finally get back to the dock, tie the boat up, whatever. He passes out for like 2 hours, just passes out, which I knew was telling, because if everything was fine, why did you just pass out down below? So anyway, later, a couple scotches later, I said, you have to tell me at least you were a little scared. And he goes, I was nervous. I was absolutely nervous. It was the first time we had this vessel. He had this vessel in bad water. So It's a learning curve. I mean, every boat is different. He had a sailboat before. This is a whole different. So he said, but he goes, my job was to get you home. My job was to be the captain, and I had to be the captain. Yeah. So it was such a, I still wanted to kill him. Don't get me wrong. But it sort of created this, it was eye-opening for me, because I knew he was nervous. I mean, we got your 2.5-year-old baby girl on a boat in high seas, right? Terrifying. But he didn't let on to that. Like he led us through that trial and got us home safe. I would never, ever do it again. I would have jumped in the harbor and swam to shore next time, because it was horrible. But my point is, it's as far as even when there's fear, right, there has to be good leadership. That's if you really want to be a leader, right, you have to be the captain of that boat in that storm, because you set the tone. So his calmness kept me calmer. I wasn't calm by any means, but it helped keep me at a place that I could hang on to my kid and hang on to the chair and, and sort of get home. So I think it's just that like crisis management and setting the tone for that. But that's also another reason I'm not a fan of cruising, because if I was on a cruise ship and we were in that, I think I'd probably have a heart attack. But that's just a little
the
side.
Critical element of that story is that you said he had been in rougher waters. He had trained for that. It wasn't new to him. And I think, when you look at great leaders that go through tough times, it's almost always the case that they have been prepared for that through something else. They've seen something very similar. They go into it knowing the danger, but also knowing that they have to come through. but it's the preparation, I think, that makes it so much easier. And it sounds like your husband was kind of in the zone that day based on the fact that he'd been in something similar before, and he kind of knew what he had to do, even though it was difficult. And that is a sign of leadership. So that's it's a great story.
He says I exaggerate, but that's another story.